Sergey Kovalev against Anthony Yarde is on. Again, this is the battle camp. Please hit the subscribe button. You'll find it in the bottom right hand corner of your screen. So I was literally just about to go to sleep, but I just turned the light off and my phone vibrated. And it vibrated because I've got the notifications on for every time Michael Benson tweets. And he's just tweeted, and this is what it says. Sergey Kovalev vs Anthony Yarde is set for August 24th in Russia, according to Bob Arum. However, he claims that if Canelo vs Kovalev is made, then a deal has been agreed to pay Yarde step-aside money and have him fight Gilberto Ramirez while he waits. So that's big news. The fact that there's a date in place for Kovalev to fight Yarde isn't such big news, because if we cast our minds back a couple of weeks to the build-up to Tyson Fury against Schwartz, the fight week, Bob Arum and Frank Warren had both basically said that there was a meeting that was due to happen in that week, where Bob Arum was going to mediate between Frank Warren and Kovalev's advisors for them to renegotiate the fight and get it signed. And after the day, I think, just for example, say, oh yeah, the meeting's happening this Thursday. Frank Warren, let's get it right, the meeting's happening this Thursday. And then the meeting happened. Everyone kind of said, yeah, we've come to an agreement, and an announcement will follow shortly. So this isn't a formal announcement, but it's an announcement of sorts. So that's all fine. The thing that is a bit of a surprise to me is, one, the fact that Bob Arum is openly talking about Kovalev against Canelo. So we know that them two have been flirting with each other quite publicly, and they want to fight. Well, according to Twitter and stuff, it looks like they want to fight each other. I didn't think it would happen, to be fair. I don't think that fight would happen, but it kind of does make sense from Canelo's point of view, because it seems like he doesn't want to go down the Triple G route. I nearly said route there, but then I remembered I'm not American. So it looks like he don't want to fight Triple G again, basically. And the only other option I'd say in that weight class for him at this moment is Andrade. An option also is Callum Smith, but I'd say at this stage, fighting Kovalev may be a less difficult task for Canelo. And that sounds strange to say, but I don't know. I just think this might be the right time for Canelo to fight Kovalev. And in terms of name value in America, Kovalev is definitely the bigger name, and a fight that will generate more interest from Canelo's point of view. It's kind of like lower risk, higher reward if he was to fight and beat Kovalev. So that makes more sense. But I like I said before, I didn't really think that this fight would happen. Obviously, I think Canelo's probably going to fight in September. That's usually the date that he fights, September and May. So that they need to get moving on finding an opponent, if it is going to be Kovalev or whoever it's going to be. But anyway, let's forget about them, because the more important bit in all of this, for me personally, is the bit where the second bit of the tweet, and I'll reread it to you guys to refresh your memory. However, he claims that if Canelo vs Kovalev is made, then a deal has been agreed to pay Yarde step-aside money and have him fight Gilberto Ramirez. Fucking Gilberto Ramirez isn't a keep busy fight. Do you know what I mean? Gilberto Ramirez is an undefeated fighter. The guy that vacated his title at super middleweight and moved up to light heavyweight. And it's his belt that Billy Joe Saunders now has. And he's ranked at number 2 in the WBO rankings, below Anthony Yarde, and obviously Kovalev is the champion. So Gilberto Ramirez is, and I don't know this off by heart, I'm not pretending to be some sort of historian, I'm just looking at his record now. He's 40-0. He's an experienced fighter, he's an ex-world champion, and a guy that didn't lose that belt. He vacated it because he wanted to move up in weight classes. And if all of this is true, and I say if because Bob Arum has said it, these words have come from Bob Arum, and although Bob Arum is a promoter and he should know what he's on about, promoters have been known to tell porkies every now and again. And personally, you got to take whatever Bob Arum says with a pinch of salt. But if this is true, and we can take what is in this tweet on its face value, then anything that anyone has said about Anthony Yarde up until this point, I'm not saying it's no longer valid. I'm not saying it's no longer justified. But if Yarde ends up in a position where he fights Kovalev, and if that fight doesn't happen, he fights Ramirez, then you've got to fucking take your hats off to him. And you've got to say fair play. Whether he wins or loses is a different matter. But in terms of the route that Tunde Ajayi always spoke about, lines in the camp, what does he say? Dream it, believe it, become it. We don't get weak, we get deep. Alright? We don't get weak, we get deep. Lines in the camp. Like all of the stuff that Tunde Ajayi said, and I've moaned about it personally on this channel. I've talked X amount of shit about Tunde Ajayi's point of view, his opinions, and his outlook on boxing. But if we end up in a position where Yarde fights Kovalev, he's vindicated to an extent. If we end up in a position where Yarde fights Ramirez, again, he's vindicated. Now, if he gets in the ring and just gets spanked and just gets outclassed and gets beaten from pillar to post, then you can start posing questions. Oh, was this a wise way of maneuvering his career? Should they have moved him up in increments and given him, you know, more difficult tests as his career progressed? But if he goes in there and shows up and shows out, which isn't a Tunde Ajayi and Anthony Yarde motto saying or whatever, but I'm gonna use it. If he shows up and shows out against a Kovalev or Ramirez, then for me, well, fucking, they're justified in what they've done in the way they've moved Yarde up and the way they've literally missed. They've gone from level 1 to level 2, missed 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and straight in at level 10. If he's able to mix out that level, then he deserves to be there, right? You can always say, oh, in hindsight, well, you know, if they just were a bit more tactical with how they did things and how they maneuvered the fighter, and they could have got him in a mandatory position against a champion that is a beatable opponent, and he could have won a world title and all of that bollocks. Fuck it, man. We moan so much when fights don't get made. I spent best part of 3 months moaning about Wilder and Joshua not fighting each other. We spent ages moaning about how Thurman wasn't fighting Spence, and now Thurman's kind of old news. We're moaning about Spence not fighting Crawford. There's all these fights in boxing that aren't happening because one person doesn't want to step up to it, one person isn't ready, one person needs more money, one person's getting paid too less, one person's fighting on the wrong channel, one person's fighting on the right channel. Like, there's always fucking something when it comes to boxing. If we're now in a position where Yarde is in a position to fight Kovalev, and if that fight doesn't happen, he's willing to fight Ramirez. It's not like it's just like, what is there to gain from fighting Ramirez? Like, he ain't got a belt. Do you know what I mean? He's ranked below Yarde. Yarde doesn't need to fight Ramirez. He could have fought anyone else in that top 15 category. Someone that is that they could have kind of picked tactically and said, right, we'll fight him because he's not a big puncher. He's just more of a technical fighter. So we might be able to catch him and knock him out. We ain't got to worry about his power. You know, something like that. Like, they could have done something like that. But if they're going to go with Ramirez, and don't get me wrong, I haven't sat here and watched every single time Ramirez has fought. Maybe that is part of their thinking. I don't know. But I still feel like it's a big risk. It's a big risk to lose your mandatory title position, really. If you lose that fight, you've lost that slot. And from Bob Arum's point of view, it's kind of a win-win for him, because if Kovalev goes and fights Canelo and loses that belt, and then Ramirez beats Yarde, then he's still got his boy's still in the running. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, it's interesting. Let's see how all of this progresses. It might all be bullshit, and all of this video what I've said in this video might just none of this might ever happen, because that's boxing, innit? That's the nature of the sport. But this tweet has allowed me to get excited for now. Let me know what you guys think. Put your comments below. Don't be scared to hit the like button, the share button, the subscribe button, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.